2 more arrows thunk into the trunk of the tree as Arvio barely peeks out. Longsword at the ready, Arvio dashes behind the next tree before taking another look to reveal the position of his enemy, but there still seems to be no soul in sight. He briefly looks at his wounds again. Even though the potion he drank earlier is alleviating the pain, the injury was still very real. He pulls the arrow out and manages to do so after some resistance. The arrow was in fact barbed, and it had torn his flesh on the way out. Extremely relieved he was under the effects of a painkiller, he applies a rudimentary bandage to his wound. Good enough, he thinks to himself as he forms his strategy. Playing this game of cat and mouse will not do, as it would only benefit the attacker due to their ranged superiority. He would have to lure them out into the open. In any case, the first priority is to be able to see the assassin in plain sight in order to properly assess the threat. Grabbing a scroll from his belt, he casts Misty Step as he teleports up into the air and onto one of the larger branches on his tree. As the scroll disintegrates, Arvio notices that it was one of his last magical scrolls. That was disappointing to Arvio, but he recognizes that there would probably not have been a better opportunity to use it. As he looks down from high ground, it appears that his enemy had managed to evade his field of perception once again. He curses as he comes to the only logical conclusion possible. The enemy, or multiple thereof, must be protected under some kind of magical invisibility. Otherwise, Arvio's sharpened senses would have spotted them long ago. 3 more arrows, materializing from thin air, fly towards our hero, confirming his suspicions. He deftly deflects one of the arrows with his sword and manages to barely dodge the other 2. Briefly calculating the trajectory of the arrows, they seem to have all originated in the same position. One attacker then, Arvio deduced. He throws a bottle of flash powder close to the location of the attacker. This had a dual purpose. It could reveal the attacker, as well as disorientate them when the powder pops like firecrackers. The flash powder ignited with a bang when it came into contact with the air, and a brief blur as well as a chromatic aberration in the light allowed Arvio a momentary view of a silhouette. Seizing this opportunity, Arvio leaps from the tree, arms behind his head as he prepares for a heavy swing. Arvio presumes that he might need to sacrifice a graceful landing in return for placing all of his momentum behind the strike, and he does so without a second thought. Gritting his teeth, Arvio risks it all as his blade flies through the air until it hits a very solid target and draws blood. Now visible, Arvio is stunned that the assailant looked very similar to him. In a sleek black cloak, compared to Arvio's emerald green, the garment covered the entirety of his body. Arvio could hardly make out the man's face under the hood, but he managed to catch a glimpse. He sees a dark, red metal mask resembling the face of a dragon. Could this man also be a shadow? The thought was strange to Arvio, and he quickly discards it. Shadows would never attack their own. The attacker fades back after he is struck, but Arvio could see a heavy wound on the man's shoulder. The stranger draws a greatsword as he enters a defensive stance, adept in sword training as well. Arvio muses, just who exactly is this man? This ends part 3 of the series, Death of a Shadow. I hope you enjoyed Arvio's story thus far. If you are interested, please tune in next time to the Cormyrean Preservation Society for the final installment. My name is Hussam Al-Din, and I thank you for listening.